Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Tori Eldridge, author of the novel The Ninja Betrayed, the third novel in the Lily Wong series. Tori, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. Well, if someone hasn't yet heard about your new novel, The Ninja Betrayed, how would you describe the novel?
Well, I guess I have to start by describing the Lily Wong mystery series. It's about a Chinese-Norwegian modern-day ninja in Los Angeles. And the series is equal parts action thriller and intriguing mystery and complex family dynamics. So my heroine is Lily Wong, and she's 25 years old, and she's dedicated herself to the protection of women and children from violent situations. And she's done this ever since her younger sister was raped and murdered. And so Lily now works for a women's shelter and is also finding her way as an adult with her Hong Kong immigrant mother, who is a high-powered executive for her grandfather's international finance company, and with her North Dakota Norwegian father, who is actually an authentic Hong Kong cuisine chef above whose restaurant Lily lives. So in the first book, The Ninja Daughter, Lily tangles with the Los Angeles Ukrainian mob, Mexican street gang, and an assassin to save two women and an innocent child. In the second book, The Ninja's Blade, Lily goes undercover into the world of youth sex trafficking, while at the same time keeping her meddlesome grandparents who are visiting from Hong Kong from ruining her mother's 50th birthday bash. And in both of these books, her family, namely her mother and grandparents, are conspiring to set her up with Daniel Kwok, the perfect Chinese son, who happens to be in Hong Kong during book 3, The Ninja Betrayed. So in this new book, things get really personal for Lily in Hong Kong when she investigates her grandfather's business to save her mother from corporate attack. And the city is in turmoil in the height of the 2019 pro-democracy struggle. And Lily is juggling family tension and escalating romance with Daniel, which quite frankly, is scaring her to death. Shady finances, duplicitous friends in the family business, murderous triads, and the wayward daughter of her grandfather's driver's daughter. Well, I think I already said that. Of her grandfather's driver, who is getting pulled into volatile riots from these activists. And so in The Ninja Betrayed, emotions are really high, with love and intrigue and danger. And it's all set against this stunning backdrop of Hong Kong and a ridiculous amount of mouthwatering food.
That's a great description. I'm curious, do you remember the original idea or impetus that led you to writing the first Lily Wong mystery novel?
You know, I do. I was writing another novel completely unrelated at the time, when I received a call for a submission for a short story. And I thought, oh, okay, let me just try. And I had this premise in mind, and I just started writing. This was the fastest a short story ever came out of me. Usually it takes a month. This took 2 days. And on the page appeared this ninja. And she was in a bar and she was stalking her sister's killer. And it goes awry. And in this, as soon as I wrote this story, I knew I was writing the beginning of a novel. And if I wrote that novel, it would likely begin a series. And, time went on. I submitted this and later it was published, and I went on to write my other books, and I was writing other short stories. And finally, my agent at the time said, stop what you're doing and write the ninja books. I went, okay. So, I did.
Well, I'm curious about that. When you sat down to write the first novel, did you know that there would be a series, and did you do any planning ahead in terms of, info maybe that you would introduce in one novel that you would pick up in another? Do you know what I mean? Did you do any kind of overarching kind of planning?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Not entirely. I once I knew I was going to set on this course, then it became about who Lily Wong really is and what her family dynamic is and who are these people. And understand that I drew a lot from my own personal experience because, as I mentioned, Lily's mother is a Hong Kong immigrant. Her father is Norwegian from North Dakota. They live in Los Angeles. So my mother is Chinese Hawaiian from Maui. My father was Norwegian from North Dakota. They met and married in Tokyo, where they had my two sisters, and then moved to Honolulu and had me. So, I have a deep well of cultural input, from which to draw. But even that said, when I was looking at who is this, first generation Chinese American, who is this young woman? I interviewed a lot of my friends, to get a collective experience so that out of that, I could really get to know Lily Wong. And from that, I kind of reversed engineered to figure out who were her parents, because they're most certainly not mine. And what I really wanted to do was, dive into this and also bust through the sensationalized myth, right, of ninja. And I drew from my own experience because I happen to hold a 5th degree black belt in the ninja arts, Toshindo. And so I really wanted to bring that authenticity. And of course, I've lived in Los Angeles for over 35 years. And as luck would have it, I now have a granddaughter whose mother is from Hong Kong. So it's kind of insane. So I began with who is Lily? Who is this family? And from all of this, once I did that, once I understood who she was and this dynamic, I had laid the path in my mind to evolve her character and all these relationships over the course of a series for however many books, readers were interested or my publisher was interested in writing. And so I didn't map out what that character arc was. I just knew that here she is. She's 25. She and her family are dealing with this tragic occurrence of, having her younger sister raped and murdered. There's grief. There's unearned guilt. There's secrets. There's coming of age. There's, all these things going on. There's so much room for her to grow and evolve. And of course, she's at an age where everything is up for grabs, right? When you're 25, you learn so rapidly. You make the worst mistakes, the most adventurous decisions. And so I just knew that that's what was going to happen. And I knew that if the series went, I would have to, at one point, take her back home to her mother's homeland in Hong Kong. And when I was writing the second book, I knew that time would be book 3.
So are you working on another Lily Wong novel now?
I am. I'm not going to tell you where this one's going, but I will say that if you read the 3rd Lily Wong book, at the very end, you'll know exactly where the 4th book takes place. And here's the hint. It's not in Los Angeles.
That's great. So I'm wondering if you can take me back. What was your initial writing journey that led you to writing fiction and writing whatever your first novel?
Oh my goodness. I have a really eclectic path. So, I always enjoyed writing. It was always a strength of mine, even in high school. But when I was 16, I committed myself to becoming a dancer, singer, actor on Broadway. And that was my goal. And so I went to Northwestern, not as a journalism major, which would have come in real handy right about now. I went as a theater major and stayed a year. And the next year I went to New York. And by the time I guess I was 19, maybe, I landed my first Broadway musical. And so I did a few big productions, probably the biggest of which was the first national company of Cats. And that was back in, 1983, 84. And then I left the East Coast and I came out Los Angeles and I did some television and film. See, no writing yet. Did television and film, ended up as a series regular on The Love Boat, did some movies, Final Fantasy, all this kind of stuff. had my two sons, and my husband made a change in career and became a producer, a television film producer. And so we got all of these screenplays and teleplays coming into the home. And I was an addictive reader. I still am. And so I started also reading screenplays. And I really enjoyed the medium, and I learned a lot. And at one point I had an idea. And so my husband's like, you're a great writer. You're a great reader. You should write this out. So I did. My first attempt was lousy. My second attempt ended up earning a semifinalist spot for the Academy Nicole Fellowship. So I thought, maybe I can write. Yeah. So I decided I wrote more screenplays, but everybody who read them said, oh my gosh, the language, the prose, you should really be writing novels. And so I expanded one of those screenplays into a very early version of what is now Dance Among the Flames, which is a dark fiction Brazilian horror novel of mine that's going to be coming out in May. And I wrote this novel, and oh my gosh, I loved it, but I wasn't ready to commit to the business of writing. I didn't really know what that business was. I just knew I wasn't ready to do it yet. And so I kind of put it aside, raised my kids, started taking karate, and became absolutely obsessed with the martial arts, discovered the ninja arts. The next thing I knew, I was a 5th degree black belt. I was writing and blogging about, women's empowerment and physical and emotional protection. I was doing all this stuff, but I wanted to write another novel. And so I guess it was about 6 months before my 50th birthday. I couldn't stand it any longer. I had a novel in mind, and I started writing it. And I stopped myself at about 3 chapters, and I said, I should go check what's in my closet. And I did. And I went, wow, this is really cool. And I think I'm ready to commit, right? So that became the book on which I learned my craft. I joined associations. I went to conferences. I built relationships. I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and, ended up here. So that was my circuitous route to writing fiction.
That's an amazing journey.
It certainly is unique.
Yes.
But here's the funny thing. The acting really helped. It really did. It helped with character and plot, and just because I'm kind of a method writer now. And I think that came from acting.
Hi, this is Jeff, the host of the Reading and Writing Podcast. I wanted to tell you about an app that can change how you plan parties and celebrations at your home. Drizzly. Drizzly is the most convenient way to buy beer, wine, and spirits, with delivery to your doorstep in under 60 minutes. Are you hosting a book club party and you need a couple of bottles of wine? Well, keep in mind Drizzly. Or do you and your friends make cocktails based on your favorite book characters or novels? If so, again, use Drizzly. That's DRIZLY.com. Drizzly is the #1 app for alcohol delivery. Again, that's Drizzly, DRIZLY.com. And right now, if you act, Drizzly is giving every new customer $5 off their first order. Just use the promo code FAST5 at checkout. Hey, this is Jeff, the host of the Reading and Writing Podcast. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. I have a company that I want to tell you about that I think you will definitely be interested in as a podcast listener. Family Sounds. Have you ever gone to a family reunion and traded stories and laughed with your relatives, and later you thought, gosh, I wish there was some way that we had a way to preserve those stories and preserve those memories when we're not face-to-face? Well, now you do with Family Sounds. Family Sounds can create an hour-long podcast that's just for you, that's just for your family, that tells the stories of your family and your relatives. And Family Sounds team They're pros. They've done this before. They have lots of experience crafting stories for public broadcasting through radio and podcasts. They will use your family's voices as well as a professional narrator to tie the story together. Again, the name of the company is Family Sounds, and you can find them at family-sounds.com/books. Again, that is family-sounds.com/books. Family Sounds, your memories, your family in a podcast today. So check them out. family-sounds.com/books. Thanks for listening. And how does that work for you? Just putting yourself into the role of the character that you're writing about?
Yeah, I've got a wicked imagination, and I've always been a real make-believe pretender. You know, it's kind of how I played as a kid, and it's kind of how I write as an adult, especially when I'm doing dialogue, which is hilarious because I read it out loud as I'm writing. So I should say I act it out loud as I'm writing. So I don't know what my neighbors, when I write outside, I don't know what my neighbors are thinking or is going on. And in The Ninja Betrayed, this third book is so, it has some real emotional, scenes in it. I mean, there's a lot of humor. There's tons of adventure. There's intrigue. There's romance, but there's a lot of really extreme emotion as well. And I remember writing this one scene between Lily and her mother, and I'm outside. And I'm writing this scene, so emotional, right? They're hashing out these secrets and things are bubbling up. And I'm writing and I'm talking and I'm acting and I am ugly sobbing. I mean, just ugly sobbing. And I'm just writing and not talking. And I'm sure my neighbors are just like, oh my God, what's going on over there? Call the police.
Well, given your journey and your circuitous route, I always get mixed up on that word, but what writing advice would you offer for those who are working on their own stories and novels?
Oh, goodness. I think what I've realized over the last 10 years is that there is no one single way to write, and there is no one single journey. And the idea is to find what works for you. And, the method in which you write, do you outline? Do you not outline? Do you write longhand? Do you write on a computer? Do you start with short stories? Do you start with long fiction? Do you write in the morning or the evening, with tea or with scotch or, whatever it is? And I think the secret is to simply start writing and pay attention to your own personal, natural rhythm. When do you have the most creative energy? When, in what way does that creativity come out and actually hit the page? And whatever that is, honor it and capitalize it and use it to keep writing.
That's good advice. Well, what novels have you read recently that you enjoyed?
Well, it's October, so I've been doing some horror. And of course, I have this new book, the Dancing on the Flames, that is a very dark fantasy horror, thriller type of thing. So I've been reading that sort of thing. So I just finished J.D. Barker's new book with James Patterson called The Noise. And oh my gosh, this thing is really terrifying. And very interesting, very unique. So I recommend that. And before that, I read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. That just blew me away. It had everything I want in a book, diving into, a deep community, which in this case is the Blackfoot community. It has meaning and social relevancy and tremendous relationships, but also great imagination and tension and suspense. Highly recommend it.
That's great. Well, where can people find you online if they'd like to learn more about you and your novels and the Lily Wong series?
Oh, goodness. Well, If you Google search Tori Eldridge, Tori, you will find me everywhere. But the easiest thing is to just go to my website, torieldridge.com. I have tons of fun things, including videos of me doing ninja martial arts. And so that's fun. I even have a readers page with book club kits and discussion topics and recipes and all this kind of stuff. So torieldridge.com, it's way fun. I love Instagram, writer.tori. And I'm on Twitter, Tori Eldridge, and I'm on Facebook. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, I really enjoy giving away books from my talented friends every month.
That's wonderful. Well, again, we've been speaking with Tori Eldridge, author of the new novel, The Ninja Betrayed. The novel is available now, so go buy a copy. And Tori, thanks for doing this interview.
Thanks so much for having me. Oh, may I add one thing? I have
Absolutely.
an amazing audiobook narrator. I need to give a huge shout out to Natalie Naudis. So if your listeners are fans of audiobooks, and I am very sure they are, you are going to be in for a treat. And she does a phenomenal job on all three books. But I gotta say, The Ninja Betrayed knocked my socks off. And if you want to just dive in right there with book 3 and you want to go to Hong Kong, go for it. You will fall right into the world of Lily Wong.
That's wonderful. Thanks for letting us know that. I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. So thanks again for taking the time to talk to us.
Okay, my pleasure.
Great. Now, stay tuned for a brief excerpt from the audiobook of The Ninja Betrayed by Tori Eldridge, available wherever audiobooks are sold.
We ran up the cantilevered road until we spotted the women hanging over the railings on either side. "What happened?" I asked in Cantonese. "Our dog ran through the bars and fell. We don't see her anywhere," the other woman wailed as she stared down. "Ah, yes, Susu, our sweet little mouse. Where have you gone?" "She went in through here?" I pointed to the bars on the uphill side of the road, where solid ground fell away into branches and leaves. "How will we get her out?" I took off my backpack and climbed over the railing onto the last bit of solid ground where hill met road. "Lily, are you crazy? What are you doing? You could slip under the path and fall down the cliff." I grabbed the railing and sidestepped until I felt the drop in the ground. "I'll be okay." Hanging onto the bars, I lowered myself through the tops of the plants until I hit the earth. I let go with one hand and grabbed onto a sturdy branch with the other. Daniel kneeled on the pavement and looked down at me through the leaves. "Do you need a hand?" "Maybe later." The hillside sloped under the road with a yard of headroom before it dropped into a cliff. "I'll be right back." I let go of the railing and crawled under the road into the dense growth. "Susu, come here, girl. Here, Susu." The chihuahua whimpered up ahead. I followed the sound, exchanging one branch for another to keep from sliding down the steepening hillside. "Where are you, little mouse?" The dog barked, then whimpered, as if the effort might have hurt. "Are you okay?" Daniel called from above. "I found Susu." "Be careful, don't risk your life for a dog." "It's a little late for that." I let go of a branch and slid to the base of a tree growing at an angle from under the cantilevered road. Its trunk and branches reached for the sky on the view side of the railing. A couple yards to my right, the chihuahua whimpered, trapped in the roots of another tree. "Daniel?" "Yes?" "In my backpack, you'll find a short hank of climbing rope." "Why are you carrying around rope?" "Long story." I didn't have time now to fabricate an explanation. "Unwind it, then tie one end to the top of my pack and the other to the railing on the left side of this tree." I bounced on the trunk to shake the branches. "Can you see it?" "Yes." "Good. Make sure your knots are secure." Okay, hold on a second." A minute later, Daniel lowered the backpack. "Make it swing." "Like this?" The backpack swung near and away, but not close enough to reach. "A little more." As I climbed up the slanted tree trunk, the drop below me increased to 50 feet. "Okay, let the rope swing on its own." I caught it, passed the rope under the trunk to my other hand, and shimmied down the trunk. All I needed now was the dog. Using roots and branches to keep from sliding over the edge, I crawled to Susu. She licked my hand and whimpered. I made a nest for her in my backpack, pulled her out of the hole, and stuffed her inside. Be calm, little mouse. You're almost free. I zipped her in and crawled back to my tree. Daniel, I have Siu-Siu in the backpack. In a moment, I want you to pull her up. I climbed up the trunk, then eased the precious bundle over the side. When the pack swung away from me into open space, Siu-Siu yipped and whimpered. Pull her up! As Daniel raised the pack, I studied the hillside to see if I could go up the way I'd come down. Some of the plants had uprooted during my slide. The soil around them had sloughed away. I considered the tree. If the branches had been stronger near the top, I might have climbed them to the railing. As it was, the flexible branches would bend me away farther over the cliff, assuming they didn't snap. I have the dog, Daniel yelled. Good. Tie the rope to the other railing and toss the end under the road. And, Daniel? Yes? Tie a knot at the end to give it some weight. A few moments later, the knotted end of the rope bounced down the hill and settled a yard out of my reach. I braced my feet against the base of the tree and jumped up the slope, grabbed the rope, and slid until the slack tightened and yanked me to a stop. Are you okay? Yep. I pulled myself up hand over hand across the slick soil. The slope was steeper here than where I had descended, but soon I reached a solid patch of hill where I could dig in my feet. A few pulls later, I reached the edge of the road and Daniel's outstretched hand. I climbed over the railing, looking considerably worse for the wear. Are you all right? You could have been seriously injured. I can't believe you did all of that for a dog. You don't like dogs? Of course I do, but not as much as I like you. That's sweet, Daniel, but I wasn't doing anything I couldn't handle. You saw me on that high bar. I'm more capable than you think. I know, it's just... He handed me my pack with a shaky smile. Can we go back to dinner dates? Dinner? After all of this, I want lunch.